On the chilly winter morning of January 29, 2025 in Jackson, Mississippi, Kenesha Bowie woke up and went to work as usual. The entire morning passed with an outward calm, but inwardly, she was considering a significant decision. As lunchtime approached, Kenesha quietly opened Facebook and changed her relationship status from in a relationship to single, a seemingly small click that held immense courage, marking her resolute decision to leave a toxic relationship with Michaela Davis. That evening, she went to the apartment on Woodway Drive to collect her last belongings. Suddenly, a fierce argument erupted, Michaela's voice, cold and full of rage, intermingling with Kenesha's trembling pleas. Then, 4 sharp gunshots pierced the night air, followed by a profound silence. From love to murder, what caused their conflict to escalate to an irreversible point? On a sweltering June afternoon in Jackson, within a small, paint-splattered apartment, Michael Davis, 27, appeared as a figure both strong and fragile. Her familiar habit was to meticulously examine herself in the mirror before stepping out, adjusting every tiny crease on her gym clothes. To others, it might have seemed like mere vanity, but for Michaela, it was a matter of survival. Her obsession with her physique was rooted in her middle school years, when she was mocked by friends for being overweight. That wound was deeply etched into her memory, nurturing a steely determination she had to be seen, to be beautiful in the eyes of the world, or at least in her own eyes. Gym, diet, selfies shared online, all were not merely habits, but a protective armor against judgment. Yet, in that proud gaze, a raw fear sometimes flickered, the fear that, if she stopped trying, she would again be swallowed by self-consciousness. In stark contrast to Michaela was Kenesha, 25, a McDonald's employee familiar with grease-stained uniforms, but always adorned with a radiant smile. Her laughter, clear and full of life, often echoed through the cramped kitchen of the restaurant. Kenesha didn't have polished photos or calculated statuses. She simply lived life to the fullest, warm and approachable to the point where anyone who met her felt at ease. What friends remembered about her wasn't her clothes or appearance, but a small habit whenever she spoke. Kenesha would often tilt her head and smile, a gesture like an exclamation mark at the end of a sentence, decisive, sincere. Hidden beneath that innocent exterior was a simple yet fierce desire to escape the small confines of her town, to find a broader path where she could become someone rather than the cute girl at the order counter. January 2024 marked the beginning of a seemingly promising love story when Michaela and Kenesha met at an LGBTQ+ event in Jackson. Their first meeting took place in the warm atmosphere of the community, where both sought connection and genuine love. Their initial impressions of each other seemed sincere and positive, fresh moments filled with radiant smiles and natural displays of affection. Mutual friends within the community acted as connectors, and the early days of their relationship were filled with sweet messages and romantic dates. Within just 2 months, from February to March 2024, they publicly changed their Facebook status to in a relationship. By April, both began taking turns staying at each other's apartments, and by summer, they decided to move in together at Michaela's apartment on Woodway Drive. But even in the euphoria of love, subtle signs had begun to appear. Michaela, during conversations, would often make comments about overweight people passing by, making Kenesha uncomfortable but silent. In the soft, golden light of a Jackson afternoon, one person looked in the mirror to find herself. The other smiled brightly to be remembered by others, 2 parallel ways of existing that would eventually collide. small cracks began to form, fragile but enough to foreshadow a widening rift in what seemed to be a sweet relationship. By the summer of 2024, the first cracks in the relationship between Michaela Davis and Kanesha Bowie began to show. Initially, they were just seemingly harmless remarks. But over time, they transformed into a systematic chain of controlling behaviors. In June, Michaela started to excessively scrutinize Kanesha's diet. Every meal Kanesha ate was examined: too much salt, too much grease, not enough vegetables. What should have been simple concern quickly turned into imposition. Michaela memorized everything Kanesha ate and didn't hesitate to deliver cold comments: "If you keep eating like this, don't expect to fit into your dresses anymore." By July, the control began to shift to messages. One evening, Kanesha received a text: "Skipped the gym again. Don't cry when your clothes don't fit." The words seemed playful but contained an underlying threat, instilling in Kanesha the feeling that she was constantly being watched. In August, Michaela sent her inspirational photos, thin women with the message, "This is the standard." From September onwards, checking Kanesha's gym schedule became a daily routine. Friends gradually noticed the change. Kanesha appeared less at gatherings, smiled less, and sometimes avoided cameras. Some whispered that she had gained weight about 15 pounds in just a few months. It could have been due to medication, stress, or emotional eating, but it all correlated with the pressure Michaela created. Still, whenever anyone asked, Kanesha brushed it off. "She's just a little worried about my health." By the fall of 2024, things worsened. Halloween became a turning point. That day, at a crowded party, Michaela publicly argued with Kanesha solely because of a costume she deemed too revealing for her figure. Amidst the crowd, Michaela didn't restrain her contemptuous tone. Kanesha, blushing through tears, left the party, leaving behind anxious and bewildered glances. From this point, Michaela's pattern of psychological abuse became clearer. She began to exert tighter control what Kanesha wore, ate, where she went, even whom she met. Every criticism focused on her appearance, gradually eroding Kanesha's self-confidence. But the cycle of abuse wasn't solely violent. After every argument, Michaela would become gentle, apologize, and promise, "I only want what's best for you." This very alternation trapped Kanesha in a spiral of hope and despair, making it difficult to break free. By December, the psychological abuse extended beyond the four walls of the apartment and onto social media. Michaela posted cryptic statuses, not mentioning Kanesha by name, but everyone knew whom she was referring to. On December 10th, she unleashed two infamous posts. The first: "Y'all be talking about how fat folks need love. We get with him. They get to do skinny bits, like I'm not putting up with no extra weight." The phrasing was both sarcastic and self-righteous. Dating Kanesha was akin to charity. Hours later, Michaela continued, "From now on, you can't be no bigger than me, and I ain't but 135 lb being honest, 133 by baby. So bring you scale to my DM. I'm not doing this. No more." This wasn't just a threat. It was a rule about weight, reducing human worth to a cold number on a scale. Kanesha remained silent. From that day on, she stopped posting photos, stopped appearing in front of cameras. Friends tried to reach out, but she refused. "She's just stressed." Kanesha increasingly withdrew, allowing Michaela to become the sole center of her world. In January 2025, the violence escalated into real life. On the 7th, at a restaurant, Michaela openly mocked Kenesha's meal, loudly asking, "Do you really need that many calories?" The entire restaurant turned to stare. Kenesha bowed her head in shame. On the 15th, Michaela was caught by Kenesha's colleague rummaging through her car in the parking lot, throwing a fast food bag directly into the trash can. The behavior had gone far beyond control, bordering on stalking and psychological terrorism. The climax occurred on the evening of January 22nd at a mutual friend's birthday party. Amidst the music and laughter, Michaela suddenly turned to challenge everyone. "Guess how much she weighs? I just saw the number this morning." The ensuing laughter turned into public humiliation. Kenesha quietly left, sending a final text message to a friend, "I can't take it anymore." From January the 23rd to 28th, Kenesha secretly prepared to leave the relationship. She looked for a new apartment and discussed staying with her sister. But Michaela also noticed the change. The atmosphere in the Woodway Drive apartment became thick with tension. Kenesha sought freedom, while Michaela, in her obsession with losing control, began to slide into extreme thoughts. Late in the afternoon of January 28, 2025, in an old Toyota parked by the roadside, Kenesha Bowie made a phone call to an apartment complex. Her voice was calm, but hope still gleamed in every word she inquired about a vacant apartment where she could start anew. After months of living under Michaela Davis's control, Kenesha finally felt a path to escape opening before her. When the call ended, she smiled, a relieved smile that her family and friends hadn't seen in a long time. That evening, in a conversation with her sister, Kenesha spoke of staying for a few weeks. Her voice sounded both resolute and optimistic, as if she'd just shed a burden that had lingered for too long. On the other side, Michaela had fallen into an entirely different world. She sat alone in the Woodway Drive apartment, eyes glued to her phone screen. Her search history that night would later send shivers down police officers' spines. How to make someone regret leaving. Self-defense laws in Mississippi. How to keep a lover when they leave. These brief, stark phrases spoke volumes. Michaela wasn't just heartbroken about losing her girlfriend, she was calculating a violent scenario, even seeking to legalize it through the law. In the nightstand drawer, a 9mm Glock lay silent, awaiting a new fate. The next morning, Kenesha woke early. She put on light makeup, chose a simple office outfit, and drove to work. Security cameras captured her walking through the door at 7 in the morning, appearing as calm as usual. By midday, alone in the break room, she opened her phone, logged into Facebook, and changed her relationship status from in a relationship to single. Just one click. But for Kenesha, it was a declaration of independence, a decisive affirmation that she had severed ties with Michaela. No one expected such a seemingly small act to ignite a powder keg. Immediately afterward, Michaela called relentlessly. Kenesha's phone rang repeatedly, but she didn't answer. More than 24 missed calls in just a few hours, and Kenesha's silence seemed to deepen Michaela's rage. Close to 3 in the afternoon, Kenesha finally replied with a brief message. "We need to talk, but not now. I'll come get my things tonight." The message conveyed both determination and naivete. She believed she could pack up peacefully. As evening descended, Michaela appeared at a gas station near her home. Cameras recorded her buying a bottle of vodka, her face cold and impassive. No one knew if she sought courage in the alcohol or simply fueled the anger about to erupt. When the clock struck 6 in the evening, Kenesha entered the Woodway Drive apartment. She carried an empty duffel bag, planning to stuff her last belongings into it. The hallway camera footage is still preserved her small figure but determined eyes, mixed with a hint of unease inside. Kenesha quietly folded clothes, carefully placing each cosmetic item into the bag. Every gesture was cautious, as if she knew this was the last time she would touch these familiar items. The bag was half full when Michaela returned. The apartment's atmosphere changed instantly, becoming thick and heavy. An explosion occurred. Michaela, alcohol mixed with rage, hurled bitter accusations at Kenesha: betrayal, ingratitude, weakness. She defended her past, mocking remarks that had hurt Kenesha as merely being frank, while Kenesha's sensitivity was just a personal problem. In a fit of madness, Michaela snatched the framed photo of them from the table, throwing it violently against the wall. Glass shattered, shards scattering across the floor, the sound like a warning for the unavoidable tragedy. Kenesha panicked. She dropped the bag, rushing towards the front door, hoping to escape before things escalated beyond control. But Michaela was faster. She pulled the Glock from the drawer, raised her hand, and aimed directly. The first shot rang out in the bedroom, the bullet piercing Kenesha's body. Blood flowed, but survival instinct urged her on, and she still tried to run, leaving a long red trail on the tile floor. The door to freedom was just a few steps away, but Michaela didn't stop. 3 more gunshots erupted. One hit her torso, one pierced her arm, and the last lodged in her head just as Kenesha tried to turn the doorknob. Her body collapsed onto the small rug by the exit, still reaching for a way out after the gunshots. Silence enveloped the apartment. No cries, no signs of panic. Michaela spent nearly 20 minutes wiping away blood, gathering a few personal items, and packing them into a small bag. Her calmness later led investigators to conclude this was not an impulsive act, but a decision long prepared. As the clock neared 7 in the evening, outside the building, cameras recorded Michaela walking out. On her shoulder was a small, neat bag, her stride calm, unhurried, unafraid. The person who had just murdered her partner looked no different from an ordinary woman ending a long, tiring day after the gunshots. The Woodway Drive neighborhood fell into an eerie silence, what seemed like firecrackers in the sky. Everyone knew that somewhere within those quiet apartments, a tragedy had just unfolded. Many neighbors heard the sounds, but no one immediately called 911. This indifference reflected a familiar habit in modern urban life, ignoring unusual signs, unwilling to interfere in others' affairs. If someone had been quicker, perhaps those precious minutes could have saved Kenesha Bowie's life. But by the time the police arrived, her injuries were too severe to save. The emergency call finally came from a neighbor returning home, who discovered the apartment door ajar and a trail of blood on the doorframe. Within 8 minutes, the police were on the scene. This swift response, though professional, could not change the outcome. In the living room, Kenesha's body lay in a position as if she had tried to run out the door. 4 bullet wounds on her body, telling the story of her last moments. The blood trail extending from the bedroom to the living room became a vivid testament to her final effort, a courageous woman who fought fiercely until her last breath. Michaela was no longer in the apartment, her absence adding to the severity of the case. All signs indicated that this was not an impulsive act. The apartment appeared as a painful tableau of preparation and calculation. 4 scattered 9mm shell casings, a shattered framed photo, Kenesha's phone still intact, containing crucial messages that would prove a long-term pattern of abuse, the duffel bag, half filled with clothes not yet taken, lay piled on the bed, like a silent witness to a dream of freedom unfulfilled. Security cameras provided a vivid picture of the events, Kenesha entering the apartment with determined but slightly anxious eyes, Michaela calmly leaving after the gunshots. The time elapsed between the violence and Michaela's appearance at the police parking lot was long enough to prove this was not an act committed in a fit of panic. She was calm, showing no signs of fear or guilt, the handbag on her shoulder suggesting that everything had been carefully premeditated. As soon as the victim's identity and her relationship with the perpetrator were established, the police issued an arrest warrant. Michaela was described as armed and dangerous, and the information quickly spread throughout Mississippi and surrounding areas. But the manhunt ended surprisingly just 2 hours later, when Michaela voluntarily appeared at the Jackson police station. Her first words to the police: "She disrespected me. She thought she could just leave," revealed a clear subjective mindset and lack of remorse. Her chillingly calm demeanor caught the investigators' attention. Michaela showed no empathy, still believing she had the right to control Kenesha's life. The 9mm Glock, found in her car, completed the picture of a killer who had thoroughly prepared beforehand. Further investigation revealed the extent of premeditation through digital evidence. Michaela's phone search history from January 28th revealed alarming keywords like "how to make someone regret leaving" and self-defense laws in Mississippi. She even screenshotted Kenesha's single status and sent it with threatening messages. She's about to learn a lesson. All these actions demonstrated a clear, calculated intent for revenge. The Facebook history from December 2024 painted a picture of prolonged abuse. The posts about weight were not merely complaints, but a systematic strategy to break Kenesha's self-esteem. Psychologists noted this as a typical example of coercive control from private mental abuse, escalating to public violence, ultimately leading to murder. The fear of abandonment became the trigger for Kenesha's decision to break up, transforming a previously controlling woman into a desperate killer. Forensic analysis solidified all hypotheses. The Glock handgun perfectly matched the bullets at the crime scene, and gunshot residue on Michaela's hands and clothes proved she had recently fired a weapon. DNA and fingerprints of both were found throughout the apartment, confirming their presence. Tiny bloodstains on Michaela's clothes, direct evidence of her presence when the shots were fired, refuted any other scenarios. Witnesses recounted the toxic relationship and the escalating violence. Kenesha's sister recalled her daughter's words. "She told me she was afraid of what Michaela might do if she tried to leave." Friends and colleagues provided evidence of Kenesha's isolation and stalking behavior, while a witness at the restaurant confirmed the public argument on January 7th, helping to build a clear timeline. Psychological experts analyzed Michaela's behavior, emphasizing her use of body shaming and coercive control as tools of abuse. The combination of abandonment, fear, controlling behavior, and preparation for violence indicated this was a premeditated case, not an impulsive act. Within 48 hours, investigators gathered enough evidence to charge Michaela Davis with first-degree murder. The search history, the pattern of escalating violence, and her remaining at the scene clearly indicated premeditation. The decision to plead not guilty and take the case to trial with the highest possible sentence reflected the justice system's seriousness regarding this type of crime. The preparation for the trial unfolded in a tense atmosphere and garnered significant public attention. As Kenesha Bowie's case became a symbol for broader societal issues concerning domestic violence and digital abuse, The prosecution team was meticulously selected, comprising lawyers with deep expertise in domestic violence and homicide, ensuring that every facet of the case would be presented professionally and persuasively. The defense opted for a strategy of non-cooperation and silence, a decision many legal experts considered high risk but understandable, given the overwhelming evidence against their client. The assigned judge possessed extensive experience with severe violence cases, guaranteeing that the trial would be conducted fairly and with legal rigor. Jury selection proved to be a particular challenge, as the case had been widely reported by local media and influenced public opinion in the Jackson community. The final 12 jury members represented various social strata, from those in education and healthcare to ordinary laborers, ensuring that the verdict would reflect the views of the entire community. The official indictment charged Michaela Davis with first-degree murder, based on strong legal grounds of premeditation and meticulous planning. Aggravating factors, including domestic abuse and digital violence, were included in the indictment, potentially leading to a maximum penalty of life imprisonment with or without the possibility of parole. The prosecution's presentation of evidence was systematic and compelling, beginning with powerful digital evidence. The Facebook posts from December 10, 2024, were displayed in full before the jury, creating a chilling silence in the courtroom as everyone recognized the level of cruelty and systematic psychological abuse. The search history was shown on a large screen with suspicious keywords, painting a clear picture of premeditation for the crime. 27 unanswered calls in one day were replayed, each phone ringing like the final beats of a dying relationship. The screenshot of Kenesha's single status, taken and shared by Michaela, along with threatening messages, left many jury members visibly horrified. Forensic evidence was presented with absolute scientific precision, leaving no room for doubt. The complete match between the 9mm Glock handgun and the ballistics at the crime scene was illustrated with detailed images and analyses. Gunshot residue on Michaela's hands and clothes was presented through scientific test results, irrefutably proving that she had recently fired a weapon. DNA and fingerprint analyses were meticulously presented, confirming the presence of both individuals at the apartment at the time of the crime. Microscopic bloodstains on Michaela's clothes were analyzed and projected, proving her immediate presence at the scene when the shots were fired. Security cameras provided some of the strongest evidence, as a complete timeline from Kenesha's arrival to Michaela's departure was shown like a painful documentary. Expert analysis of Michaela's body language revealed a complete absence of the panic, guilt, or distress that a normal person would exhibit after causing another's death. Video footage from the gas station camera showing the purchase of vodka before the crime was used to prove Michaela's premeditation, preparing herself mentally for the final confrontation. Cameras at various other locations helped build a complete movement itinerary, leaving no gaps in the chain of evidence. Witness testimonies created some of the most moving moments in the trial. Kenesha's sister, her voice trembling with emotion, shared, "Kenesha told me she was afraid of Michaela's reaction when they broke up. She had planned to leave but worried about her safety." These words brought tears to many jury members as they realized that the victim had legitimate fears for her life. Testimony about Kenesha's kind and non-confrontational nature painted a picture of an innocent woman caught in a storm of violence she couldn't control. Kenesha's close friends described in detail witnessing her transformation from a joyful, confident person to someone withdrawn and isolated from society. They recounted attempts at intervention that Kenesha refused because she still held on to hope for the relationship and feared Michaela's reaction. Michaela's Facebook posts were described by these friends as disturbing and cruel, indicating that the surrounding community recognized the danger signs but didn't know how to intervene effectively. Kenesha's colleague provided crucial testimony about witnessing Michaela rummaging through Kenesha's car, a clear act of stalking that showed the extent of control and intrusion. Immediately after the verdict, Kenesha Bowie's family breathed a sigh of relief, though it was mingled with deep pain. They knew Kenesha was gone forever, but at least justice had been served. That pain was channeled into action. They established the Kenesha Bowie Foundation, aiming to educate the community about healthy relationships and warn against the signs of digital abuse, workshops at high schools, a 247 hotline, free legal consultation, all activities focused on one sole goal: protecting individuals like Kenesha from similar tragedies. The Jackson community was stirred. Vibrant discussions about violence, the role of social media, body shaming, and subtle control in relationships emerged everywhere. The hashtag Justice for Kenesha spread, transforming a personal story into a warning for society as a whole. A memorial bench in the park bearing the inscription, "In memory of Kenesha Bowie. May her story help others find safety and respect," became a place where people came to remember a beautiful, courageous girl who no longer had the chance to decide her own life. Kenesha's law was enacted, expanding the definition of domestic violence, training police to recognize digital abuse, and guiding courts on handling social media evidence. Online platforms enhanced measures against harassment. AI detected patterns of abuse, and education on healthy relationships and mental health was integrated into schools. Kenesha's story serves as a reminder: body shaming and digital control are not just words, they are dangerous seeds. If the community dares to intervene, many tragedies can be prevented. The family continues the foundation's work. The community remains more vigilant, and hope is gradually sown into new generations to be knowledgeable, protected, and to live with respect.